another paddle this week. So this is the Ronbus Nova. So they have an R1 and an R3 coming out. It's going to be released, I think, like August 16th or 19th. It's a new technology
next Wednesday
that is yet to be seen for thermoform paddles. I didn't think we were going to see anything new before the year was over. We're already seeing some advancements potentially for thermoform paddles. So
all right, let's just stop right there for a second. So a new advancement. I feel like, thermoforms came on the market and it's like everyone's got one of these. So it's cool that there's some new technology. And then if you go in the comments, someone's like, hey, you mentioned the new Ronbus paddle. New technology. We never say what the new technology is and what is different. Pickleball Effect's like, yeah, Ronbus doesn't want me to go into details until the release date. And then someone said, it's got EVA foam in it and it's USPA approved. Okay, so this is when the hype train starts. Okay, for me at least. I have some other videos here and I thought I would just kind of compile this because, I don't know, maybe others might be interested. First, this is kind of the story of why am I hyped for the Ronbus Nova paddles? And it really comes back to the Legacy. I got a Legacy Pro. It was the second batch. My experience is similar to this.
The best way I can describe this paddle is like a razor-sharp, double-edged sword. If my form is good, then I'm crushing it. If I'm off my game, pop-up city.
This idea of pop-up city, this lack of control. And that's what I experienced when I tried out the Legacy Pro. I love the spin. It was hard to control the power, but the part that just was not as fun, I feel like the control just wasn't there. I was popping them up when it didn't feel like it should get popped up. It felt more like this. Alright, so the ball's coming. Right there. His plane kind of crashed through all this like trees and stuff and debris. That's what it kind of felt like on the Legacy Pro for me. So where did that leave me? I'd still have been watching the thermoform reviews of the leading thermoform paddles, but I've just been waiting for something new. Ronbus, as a pickleball company, has already almost convinced me to go with the R3 because of all of the thermoform paddles. It was the furthest away from this experience I had with Legacy Pro. And not only that, it seemed like people were loving it.
My current favorite paddle, not by much, but it's my current favorite paddle, and that is the Ronbus R3 Pulsar. A little bit softer for thermoform paddles. You're not lacking in power, and I also think I get the most amount of spin with this paddle versus any other paddle that I've play tested or
the control. It's not just pickleball, Will. Check this out.
And the Ronbus R3 Pulsar at a solid 8.6 out of 10. The Pulsar is one of the softest and best feeling thermoform paddles when it comes to the soft game, in my opinion.
So that's the problem with Legacy Pro. I didn't like how it was feeling. Based on these reviews, the Pulsar is the paddle for me. Let's watch another one.
Okay, in terms of spin, I've always put the Pulsar above everything else. When I used this paddle and switched out between the Pulsar, I could tell differences between the power, the control. I could not tell a difference between the spin. It's going to have a little more power than the Pulsars, but the control in the Pulsars are going to be a little bit better.
Here's another top paddle out right now, the Volair Mach 1. Pharmalanky is telling us like, hey, the spin is the same, the Volair has a little bit more power, and the Pulsar has more control. Here's another video.
Ronbus put them in S tier. The owner is just smart. His paddles have been killer. They're not overpriced. I anticipate seeing more innovative things from Ronbus in the future.
Chris Olsen's got to know. Maybe he's being a little bit better than Pickleball Effect at not spilling any beans. If we scroll to the end of this video, there were only 3 companies in this S tier, and Ronbus was one of them. If you go on Google and you search for Ronbus Nova, this is like a direct search. There's only 2 results. There is information. You have to look for it though. Now, several reviewers have this Ronbus Nova. And we know that because they're releasing some data for it. The first is going to be John Q. In order for this data to be put into his visualization here, he's already have had to receive the paddle and tested it out, then went through the footage and then put the data into his database, updated his visualization here, and threw it in his latest video. So to be at this point and have it in his database, I feel like Pickleball's Effect saying that this Nova is coming out in 1 week, around the 16th of August, it seems like that's legit. So we're going to look at this data, but before we do these metrics, we can go over really quick. John's going to show serve speed data and then punch volley speed data. And the reason why he does this is he makes this distinction between power and pop. In another video he did 2 months ago, someone mentioned, hey, finally, someone's mentioning the difference between pop and power. And he's like, keep using that. There's a big difference between pop and power. And so he's like, yes, for sure. Let's think more about pop and power, so we know what we're talking about here. So for power, he's just hitting this ball as hard as he can as a serve. And he mentioned he's not worrying if the ball really goes in. I mean, if it's like if the ball's like way above the net, has no chance of going in, he doesn't count those. And when he's calculating these miles per hour, but he's not worrying if it goes in. So he's just hitting this ball as hard as possible. This is kind of more like top speed. And then the other metric he's doing is a punch volley. He's at the kitchen line. His paddle is on his chest, and he just quickly hits the ball. So whatever speed you can get off from that point, that is the pop, or kind of like the acceleration. A way we can think about this, if you remember playing Mario Kart, some of you will, Bowser had this crazy big top speed, right? But then Princess Peach and Yoshi had this crazy big acceleration. So if we look at acceleration, yeah, we have Princess Peach and we have Yoshi, the best of the best acceleration. So looking at this is like pop. As soon as it says go, how quickly can you go fast? High top speed, Bowser and Donkey Kong right here, top speed. They're the best of the best. And so this is like when you are putting as much power that you have into the shot, how fast is this ball actually going to go? I think you can just imagine different parts in the game. So there's your serve, your smash. So the speed of your smash is kind of based on the power. But your speed when you're actually speeding up the ball, or it's a quick exchange and you can't get a full swing at it, this is going to be based on your pop. Interesting thing is John Q says that they're not mutually exclusive. So if you have high power, top speed, that does not mean you're going to also have this high acceleration and this high pop. So now that we kind of went through that, let's look at what we have here in the data. John mentions that of the paddles he's tested, all these ones that stand like way above the rest, there's 5 of them here, these are all EVA foam paddles. These paddles are not approved. You can't use them. They have too much deflection. They're achieving these crazy top speeds. These same 5, and John mentions this, these same 5 EVA foam paddles are not the same 5 that are shown up here. Let's do an example. Diadem Vice is way down here. See, Diadem Vice goes from here to here. Even the Diadem Icon is higher. Imagine that Diadem Icon, right? That's kind of this thinner paddle. It seems like it's this harder face. Or you could think of the Black Ace as harder face, this thinner paddle. These are just popping off these quite fast. I have a Black Ace, so I totally get, yeah, it definitely has this huge punch. Now that we have established that, let's find the data we're looking for. So here, if we look down, we have some data right here. So here's the Nova. Okay, so the Ronbus R1 Pulsar is right here. And it is right below the R1 Pulsar, but if we look at the stats, 54.7, 54.6. Let's just say they're the same. And our Pulsar is down here about 0.7 miles per hour less than the R1. So we know that the R3 Pulsar is slower just by a tad. We don't have the Ronbus R3 Nova, but if we're gonna just assume that it's kind of the same setup here, we would expect the Nova to be basically the same speed here as the Pulsar. All right, now let's go to the other side. Look here, we have Black Ace, Silker Power Air, the Filth is up there, 6-0 Black Diamond. Here we go. Ronbus Pulsar has this huge, it's way up there at the top. I mean, it's not Black Ace status, but it's still up the top, so we'll still say it has a huge pop. It's huge acceleration. If you've been watching the reviews, what do they say? They make it seem like the R1 Pulsar has this pop, has this power, but the R3 Pulsar doesn't. So let's try to find the R3 Pulsar. And here it is, way down here. Okay, so this is kind of adding up here, this 2 mile per hour difference. Now let's find the Nova. So here's the Nova right here. So we go from 35.1 to the Nova's 34.4. And first of all, how does this make sense? So here for total speed, the Nova was right there with the Pulsar. And based on that comment, it seems like the Nova is going to have some EVA foam in it. So these paddles up here have EVA foam. So here's where I'm kind of totally speculating. So the EVA foam allows high top speed, right? But the EVA foam does not also translate to high pop. Here we have them very close. Let's just say they have high top speed. But then here, similarly, if it is the EVA foam is pulling the Nova down, right? So let's go down to the R3. The R3 pulsar, the pop is already down. So what does that mean? Is the EVA foam version going to pull this even way further down? And the pop is going to be, how far down can it go? 35.1 to 34.4. Well, it didn't even go 1 mile per hour down. So the pulsar at 33, yeah, it's not going to get below the halo. So it's still going to be right around there. I kind of enjoy the Gearbox CX14, but I feel like I needed it to have more power and more control. So I'm hoping that it will have more control. And by more control, I think the sweet spot would be bigger. And we'll look at some other data to see if that's going to be true. And here's the Ronbus R3, so I'm guessing the Nova is going to be down here. So that's interesting. What happens if there's not as much pop? For me, I love to spin. I love to add side spin, especially. And I feel like side spin, it's okay if the ball isn't coming off super fast. I feel like for top spin, yeah, top spin plus speed is really nice. For side spin, I think it's going to be okay if the ball is not super fast. But because it's still going to be up here somewhere, for top speed, it's still possible to generate speed. It's just that pop's not there. And I think that will also help because if it's gonna not have the pop, it'll feel like it can dwell longer on the paddle. If it dwells longer on the paddle, then spin might increase. Now let's look at what other data we have. So that was John Q's data. So now we're looking at the Pickleball effects data. And here's all the Ronbus paddles, and we can see that both the Novas, the R1 and the R3, have been entered into Pickleball Effects database. We still don't have a price, and I'll get into my speculation on price in a second here. But let's just look at some other information. So after trying out this paddle and the pulsars, Pickleball Effects said that the pulsars were all court paddles. And based on the reviews, the pulsar was supposed to just have this really great control. But if the Nova is getting thrown into the control category, I'm thinking one of two things is going on. Either one, the Nova even has better control than the R3 pulsar, or it just has worse power. And I think, based on the data we saw earlier, it seems like, what might be more likely is that it has worse power. Still, I'm not off the hype train. It still seems like a nice controlled paddle will still be awesome with very high spin rating. So these two together, I think I can generate quite a bit of spin. That's what my hypothesis is. We have the swing weight and we have the twist weight. Stick with the R3 because that's what we're kind of leaning towards, because we were leaning towards the R3 pulsar, 122 and 120. So let's just say that's basically identical. Okay, now the twist weight, so the higher the better. And these go, I think they said from let's double check. Was it 5? Yeah, it goes from 5 to 8, with somewhere in 6 being kind of the average. So if you're over 6, you're doing better than average. And the way this twist weight was described, Pickleball effect is, if this is higher, that means your sweet spot is going to be bigger. Okay, because you can hit a little bit further off from center and it'll still feel like a normal shot. So let's go ahead and look here. So of the Ronbus paddles, the highest ones, these 6s, are the pulsars, and then the Nova and the R1. So the R1 is basically the same as the Nova. And actually, we can just even consider the twist weights here being the same too. So the sweet spot doesn't seem to be much different from these. The swing weight does seem to be different, and we know from reviews from the pulsar that the swing weight is definitely noticeable to be lower, but other things seem very comparable to the R3 pulsar. So I think that's a good sign right now. it makes it seem like what we're basically getting with the R3 Nova is an R3 Pulsar, but it's more control oriented. So probably has less pop than the R3 Pulsar, and it may have more control. It has an EVA foam, so it might feel even better. And it's still very high spin. And he said this Pickleball Effect says high spin is over 1900 RPMs. I still feel like this is going to be super fun to try out. And here's Pickleball Studio. Pickleball Studio has not added any of the Novas, but I just wanted to point out. So here, this second row here is the R3 Pulsar. That if we come here, we can look at the swing weight, 124, and the twist weight, 6.39. And if we go back, 124 is super close to 122. 6.3 something 9 and 6.15. Those are pretty close too. The reason why I want to point that out is the difference right here in these two tests. And they're using some machines because there's this variation in these two testers. I just feel like that might make it seem, at least to me, that the variation between these 122 and 120 and the 6.15 and 6.07 makes me feel like that variation shouldn't really, I'm not going to give any weight to that. I'm just going to assume these are the same because they're so close. And seeing that variation between Pickleball Effect and Pickleball Studio, that might not be the right way to go, but that's what I'm going to do. Still super hyped about the Nova. We feel like it's basically the twist weight, so this what the sweet spot feels like, and the swing weight, the fastness of your hands, it's going to feel the same as the R3 Pulsar. It still has very high spin, so spin is, we're hoping it's just as good. Maybe it's better, who knows. The big difference here, though, is it went from R3 Pulsars, Pickleball Effect saying, hey, this is an all-court paddle, has a balance of power and control, to being a control paddle. Okay, and we don't know if that means did the control change and get changed for the better to a level that makes it seem like, okay, we can't call this an all-court paddle, we need to call this specifically a control paddle? Or does it mean the control stayed the same, maybe even got a little bit worse, but it lost a significant amount of power, so it can no longer be called an all-court paddle? When we looked at the other data, based on the punch volley, it seems like that it might be a lot lower, and so that could be the reason why the power could have got less. Okay, and then the last thing I just want to share here is speculation on price. Now, I am no way equipped with credentials to even guess here, but Ronbus, I feel like everyone that talks about the owner and talks about this brand makes it seem like they're going to be affordable. Ronbus is trying to be affordable, and it seems like they have $20 off of all their paddles. So you get the R1 for $100, you can get the Pulsars for $150. So what do I think is going to happen? Well, I think one of two things. This is a new technology, this EVA foam. Ronbus has done a lot of EVA foam paddles before. Maybe it's possible that Ronbus, they feel like there's not going to be another competitor here. They're going to have this market on this thermoform EVA foam for quite a while. So if that's true, and they're also first to market here, maybe the goal is just to keep the price low so they can get as many people to buy this as possible before any other competitor jumps to market. So what would be a good price for that? If they put this here at $150, I'm being super hopeful here. Why would they put their newest technology and make it cheaper than the R3 Pulsar? Yeah, they're not gonna. It doesn't seem like that is likely, but let's just say I'm thinking low range, $150. Maybe it doesn't come up with any discount code, or even if it did, that would put it down to $130. So that's the low range, and then high range. How high does it feel like Ronbus would go? Is Ronbus going to sell a paddle for more than $200? I don't think so. Is Ronbus going to get up to $190? There is a $50 difference here. If you were going to do another $50 difference, you're at $220. People would still buy it at $220. and maybe they will do it at 220. So yeah, I guess I would say 220 is the highest, 150 I think is the lowest. I think all these will probably have the $20 off. And most realistically though, all right, I'm just gonna throw something just above here because I feel like it is coming down to a controlled paddle. It's not, the technology alone will not, I don't think, replace the R3 Pulsar. There'll still be a market for it. So yeah, I'm just gonna say 175. It's only gonna be $5 more. I don't know. These are just speculations here. What do you think Ronbus is gonna price this new paddle at? We'll find out. Hopefully within 7 days. Hopefully this is coming out within a week. All right. Hope you enjoyed this video. The purpose of this video is just, I'm very excited about this paddle. I'm talking quiet because my kids are sleeping, but and I found these different materials online that maybe some of them are kind of hard to find now because some of these people's reviews are not out yet. So I don't know. Just thought I would put this together if others are also getting super hyped about the Ronbus Nova and just want to build some more excitement. And I think excitement is nice to build around people and companies and paddles that are trying something new. And it seems like the Nova is. Hopefully, me kind of borrowing all this information from other channels even before they release their videos is okay. And we'll see.